Alright, so I have no real excuse for what I'm about to do. I was tagged in a post on Tumblr linking to a fan fiction, and I was told by the author that they thought I would be interested in it along with a few other, Tumblr blogs that apparently love Clone Wars. I have never done this before. I am only reading it aloud of my own volition. The author did not ask me to do this. I am just doing it because I feel like it, and I don't think I'll be able to. How do I say this nicely? I don't normally read this kind of stuff, so I thought it was a little weird, but I guess the Tumblr community, on the Clone Wars side at least, knows that I read some of these kinds of fan fictions, but I've never. I'm just gonna stop stalling before I fucking kill myself. Alright. In the name of science. Captain Rex Fic Part 1. Apparently there's gonna be 2 more, I guess. Prompt. Dr. Delam Asajo is practicing medicine on Coruscant while she studies to unlock the secrets behind controlling the aging process. The planet is now crawling with the very product of accelerated aging. Clone troopers. Having become obsessed with understanding their biology, Del comes up with a master plan. What better way to get their DNA into her for her studies than to seduce one of the unsuspecting troopers herself? I think that would have improved Republic Commando. It also probably would have solved the aging issue 10 times faster. Karen Travis, please take notes. That was also semi-sarcastic. I am okay with that kind of premise. Alright, pairing. Captain Rex X OFC. Original fic character, I'm assuming? Warnings. Mild sexual content, mentions of alcohol, and other adult themes. Oh yeah, by the way, if you're like 8, go do schoolwork. Stop listening to this. Fuck you. Author's note. I'm sorry if the first chapter is a bit boring, but it's very much so a setup chapter. Chapter 2 and 3 are straight up smut stories, so that'll be fun. Let me know if you want me to tag you in future chapters. Please tag me in future chapters. After you hear this, I'm pretty sure you'll block me, but I am genuinely interested in this now. I'm invested. Thank you for this. Alright. Whatever chapter 1, I guess. The hustle of the booming city roared around Delam as she stayed hidden in a side alley, her green eyes observing the unsuspecting pedestrians passing by. With a racing heart, she pressed her back against the cold wall, darkness covering her completely. Mere minutes felt like hours as she waited for someone specific. Well, sort of specific anyways. The woman had a plan that was more or less harmless. She just needed some DNA samples from a clone trooper. Any clone would do. Why? Well, in the name of medical science. Science that could potentially save hundreds of lives throughout the galaxy. Of course, a blood sample would be preferable, but... but that really wasn't a realistic goal. So she'd have to settle with a bit of hair, some skin cells, and a semen sample. Oh no. Clone troopers may have been produced by advanced science, but even a clone was still just a man at heart, and Del was aware of how men looked at her. She made sure to dress a little more suggestive than she normally would, and even for a party out in the city. Her curves were presented boldly through a tight-fitting sleeveless one-piece which was stitched with a shimmering silver thread. This shined brilliantly compared to the dark gray hue of the leather suit. Her royal blue cloak was made of a glistening silk and draped over her shoulders. The fabric was held together by a silver metal clasp laying inches above the neck of her suit. This left a generous window of skin and presented her cleavage neatly for all to see. How nice. Most civilians who didn't have day-to-day interactions with the military didn't know a whole lot about the clone troopers, including what they looked like beneath the armor. There were silly theories among the public that they were actually just a new generation of super battle droids and not really men at all. Considering how they were never really seen in public without their armor, it wasn't the craziest rumor that rolled around the galaxy. In reality, it was just speculation born from ignorance.
Dell, too, had been none the wiser until a few weeks ago. She was a doctor at the Grand Republic Medical Facility on Coruscant. With it being a military facility frequented by visiting senators and the occasional Jedi, Dell had surely witnessed her fair share of interesting sights. A few weeks ago, a Jedi Knight and his clone squadron had been quarantined at their facility after being exposed to deadly disease on a backwater planet during a humanitarian mission. Most doctors had curiously visited the group when they first arrived, surprised to see a bunch of men. Clone men instead of droids. With proper precautions in a hazmat suit, Dell had been the one to treat the team. During medical treatment, she had built a fine rapport with the team and had eventually gathered the courage to inquire about how exactly they had come to be. The clones didn't really offer a whole lot of information. Dell assumed it to be confidential, but what they did mention interested her tremendously, especially how they aged twice as fast as a normal man. Despite searching multiple databases and digital libraries, she wasn't able to find any information whatsoever relevant to the clone troopers. So, determined to find out more, she had to take matters into her own hands. The troopers under her care had been infected with a deadly virus, so their DNA was certainly out of the question. However, one of the men had mentioned that there was a cantina that catered to clones on the east side of the city called 79's. After learning that, Dell knew what she had to do, and that's what brought her here this very night. Oh, oh. She stood in a side alley just a few blocks away from the cantina and waited for an unsuspecting trooper to pass by. There were a few times where they walked. There were a few times where they walked in groups. It felt like hours before a lone clone passed the alley. He wore black combat pants and a long-sleeved black shirt. For the most part, this is what the clones under her care at the hospital sported, and from what she gathered, it's what they may have worn on their downtime. Dell planned to stage a situation where it seemed she hadn't known the man to be a clone, and from there get him back to her apartment. Taking a deep breath, Dell stepped forward toward the street before forcing her body to stumble onto the pavement. She whimpered out in pain, actually managing to land in such a way that hurt her a bit. Dell had always had a flair for the dramatic, but nothing could top the cry of genuine pain. "Are you all right, miss?" the man inquired, genuine concern in his voice. "Oh, I'm just fine. I'm so sorry. I'm not making fun of this, by the way. I am genuinely being entertained by it. I think in the way it was originally meant to be. Don't worry, Holly. I love this. I appreciate that you sent this to me. I'm just reiterating this. I'm laughing because I love you." Looking up at the tall man with glittering green eyes, Adele sat up. I didn't know their eyes were green. Adele sat up. As she adjusted herself, the edges of her cloak pulled past her shoulders to display her bulging cleavage. "I'm sorry about that. These blasted shoes keep making me fall." The man was wide-eyed and obviously taken aback by the sudden actions that had taken place. Despite this, he kindly approached to assist Adele back to her feet. She had expected this much. With the clone now before her, she had a chance to look him over. Obviously, he was identical to the patients under her care back at the hospital, but still somehow different. He had striking blonde hair to set him apart from his clone brothers, and Dell couldn't help but to notice how nice the shade went with his soft brown eyes. Oh. He was looking at... Never mind, now I understand. I'm stupid. There was no denying that these men all had a handsome structure. Tall, strong, broad shoulders, and a thick, chiseled face. Tonight surely wouldn't be too bad an experience. "No need to be sorry." His chocolate brown eyes avoided her own as he held out a hand, offering to pull her up. He spoke confidently, but his flushed cheeks revealed just how nervous he was. "I'm just glad you're okay." She gladly took his hand and he pulled her back up to her feet, after which she carefully stumbled forward into his chest. She did so in such a way that had each of her hands placed over his pecs. The clone tensed up and chuckled awkwardly. He obviously hadn't the slightest clue how to react to this. I love how you're writing this. This is fucking awesome. Dell let out a small laugh before stepping back, peering up into the blonde's eyes. Thank you for the helping hand. The dark-haired woman took a step back, still smiling up at him. The man stammered for a brief moment, as if at a loss of words. Just be more careful, miss. You could have easily hurt yourself, he finally said. I don't normally hang out in dark alleys like this. I promise. Dell chortled. Whoops. Trying to pry some interaction of him. I thought I heard a tuca cat trapped in one of those waste bins. She pointed back down the side alley. I was right, it turns out. Once I lifted the lid, the little guy ran right past me and back down the alley. That was kind of you, he commented, his voice seemingly more at ease now that Dellum had given him some space. A lot of people would have just kept walking. You mean most people in Galactic City, she half laughed. People on this planet need to learn that a little act of kindness goes a long way. Anyways, she reached her hand out, ready to shake his. I'm Dellum, by the way, but most people call me Dell. Nodding in acknowledgement, the man straightened his posture before reciprocating the handshake. I'm Rex. He smiled softly at her, trying to be friendly. Rex, she repeated, and gave his hand a playful squeeze before letting it go. Nice to meet you, Rex. I haven't really seen you around before. As she spoke, the dark-haired girl stepped back on her right foot, executing the next part of her plan. Are you new in these? As planned, the heel of her shoe snapped in half, making her fall back under her butt. Letting out a small cry in a stage surprise, she put on a wide-eyed expression. I'm telling you, I love this. I really do. It sounds like I don't, but I do. This is genuine. I love how you're writing this. It reminds me of Karen Travis, except good. Careful there. The clone known as Rex cried out and kneeled, I know you meant kneeled, down on the sidewalk beside her, seemingly very concerned. You have just a knack for falling, eh? He chuckled a bit, still avoiding eye contact as he scanned her body to make sure she was fine. You're in just the right place at the right time, I guess. As she spoke, Dell reached over to grab the part of her heel that had broken off. Holding it up, she looked at Rex, noting his concerned expression. I guess this is what the galaxy does to a woman, just trying to help the little city animals. You shouldn't think of it like that, he chuckled. What do they say, after all? Bad things happen to good people? It's a bold assumption for a person you just met on the street, Dell teased, smirking mischievously. I could be a spice smuggler for all you know, with a body count higher than you could even trace. Rex cleared his throat and tried his best not to show how nervous he was about all this playful banter. If he didn't know better, he'd say this girl was flirting with him. He was all for military protocol and shooting clankers, but interacting with civvies was something he had very little experience in, especially beautiful women in such provocative outfits. Aww. You're not... I just have a good sense about people. You seem like a good gal. That's awful sweet, Rex. Dell spoke softly as she peered into his eyes. A quick moment passed where the two strangers crossed eyes and remained in a comfortable silence. There was a strange feeling of quiescence that just felt natural. Rex snapped back into reality rather quickly, however, and scrambled to help Dylan back to her feet, realizing she was still sitting on the dirty city floor. Smooth. Once she was back to standing, Dell thanked him once more. Struggling to keep her balance, she sighed. With one broken shoe and a large pump on the other, it was hard to even stand up straight. She may have done this all to herself, but every struggle was genuine. "I swear I'm not normally this uncoordinated," Dell assured him, running her fingers through her dark, wavy hair. "You probably think I'm drunk, but I swear I haven't even had one sip." She noticed how his eyes fell to her exposed chest, so she placed a hand on her hip, purposefully pulling her cloak to the side to expose her curves. "I've never been one to wear heels like this. I've only just purchased these today, and now that I've taken a stroll around, well, I might as well have just given my credits straight to the huts. Saved myself the hassle." Rex Rex found himself laughing at her comment, enjoying her humor. "I'm sure I wouldn't have been any better. Things look like a pain in the neck." "That's not the only thing you're gonna experience." Dell smiled at him, and this time it was genuine. The blonde seemed very kind in another life. Perhaps they could have enjoyed a few rounds together at the bar, only to fall into bed together naturally. But in today's reality, she had plans to execute, and only needed him for one night. That's depressing. Shut the fuck up, you carpet. Dell smiled at him, and this time it was genuine. The blonde seemed very kind, and in another life perhaps they could have enjoyed a few rounds together at the bar, only to fall into bed together naturally. But in today's reality, she had plans to execute, and only needed him for one night. "I can't thank you enough for helping me off my ass twice," she shrugged, "but I'll let you get on your way. I need to head back home." Taking a step forward, she wobbled but stayed on her feet. She continued to walk down the street, pretending to struggle more than she actually was. "You have a good night, Rex." "You sure you'll be all right?" the clone asked for a second, obviously concerned by her lack of balance. "Yeah, I don't live too far to go." She pretended to stumble, only to catch herself mid-fall. Her wobbling her arms put on the illusion of a real balancing act. She took a few steps forward and grew concerned when Rex didn't say anything else. Until he did, that is. "Well, if you don't live too far, then, please allow me to escort you home," he offered. Bingo. "No, you don't have to do that," she protested. However, this is exactly what she wanted. "Oh, but I insist. I'd spend the rest of my night assuming that you fell down face first on the pavement."
Puppy, I love you, but you need to stop.
"No, you don't have to do that," she protested. However, this is exactly what she had wanted. "Oh, but I insist. I'd spend the rest of my night assuming that you fell down face first on the pavement." He gestured down the street to a shady cantina. "And I'm sure you know some faces in this city are not as friendly as mine." Dylan paused for a moment to give off the idea that she was genuinely still considering refusing his offer. "Well, you're quite the gentleman, aren't you, Rex?" she finally mused, flashing him a brilliant smile only to earn one back in return. "No, I wouldn't say that." He rubbed the back of his head bashfully, chuckling a bit. "Just like you said, a little act of kindness goes a long way, right?" Amused, Dell nodded and pointed down the street. "My apartment is about a 15... Amused, Dell nodded and pointed down the street. "My apartment is about a 15-minute walk past the market, if you're truly up for it." "Certainly, ma'am." He extended his arm for her to link onto, a way to give her balance during their walk. When she locked her arm with his, Rex couldn't help but blush a deep shade of red, not used to touching another person in such a situation. Not used to touching another person in such a situation. Not used to touching another person in such a situation. And so the two strangers walked arm in arm through the rough streets of Coruscant, making light conversation that came very naturally. Their pace was slow due to Dell's shoe situation, but neither of them minded very much. Rex was under the impression that Dell was just a normal woman who hadn't known what he really was. It wasn't abnormal. There were plenty of civvies who didn't recognize a trooper out of his armor. It was kind of nice to feel like a regular man for once. A normal man, walking with a beautiful woman home. No yes sir, or exhausting military formalities. Just a taste of normalcy. Something Rex knew he would never have. It was nice to pretend. Dell lived in a building on the higher end side of town, and Rex noticed the prestigious qualities right away. He had to wonder exactly what Dell did as a means to afford this. As they arrived in the lobby of her building, she removed her shoes. Now that we're off the disgusting city streets, I can go the rest of the way barefoot. She held both shoes with her hand as the door to the elevator opened. Do you want to come upstairs for a drink? She chimed, a subtle playfulness in her voice. I have some Corellian brandy that's no fun to drink alone. Rex felt as if his stomach had fallen out of his body, rolled out into the street, and been trampled by a parade of Wookiees. She was inviting him upstairs, to her apartment, to her personal living space. Him. Rex and his clone brothers may not have had a lot of experience with intricate social situations like this, but he was no fool. He knew what she intended by inviting him up. The moment of silence which passed as the man processed what she had asked him The moment of silence which passed as the man processed what she had asked of him alarmed Dell, giving her a sense of doubt to her master plan. So she took up the sex appeal to a notch, desperate to keep things on schedule. If not, I understand. She paused for a brief moment, running a hand through her curly charcoal hair. If not, I understand. She paused for a brief moment, running a hand through her curly charcoal hair so that it wafted down the side of her face. She then reached out and gave Rex's shoulder a suggestive squeeze. But I've just enjoyed your company so much, and... I've enjoyed yours too, he blurted out, immediately feeling embarrassed and flustered. He was on high alert, as awake and cautious as he would have been on any battlefield. But he wasn't at war today. Now was he? For the first time, he let his brown eyes shamelessly wander to the girl's exposed skin. He unforgivingly stared at her cleavage. He could feel his cock twitch in excitement, and he knew his face probably glowed beyond red. He'd never seen a naked woman for himself. Of course, all of the clones knew what sex was. It was part of the social learning process back on Camino. There had been a few clones that he knew of, Fives included, that claimed to have actually gone all the way with another person. As far as socializing with civvies went, there were strict rules about what one could do and what one could not do. There were technically no rules that explicitly stated sexual intercourse was off limits, only that having a committed relationship or fathering children was prohibited. So... Dell chirped quietly, licking her lips as she stepped into the elevator, motioning for the man to follow. It was only then that Rex had realized just how long he had been in quiet thought. I'd love to, he finally said, trying his best to sound as smooth as possible. The clone followed her before the doors closed. For once, the man was at a loss, not having the slightest clue as to what he should expect. And that's part 1. First of all, thank you for listening. I apologize if the editing in this is a little choppy. I fucked up on my reading a lot here because I was half giggling, half having trouble actually reading because my eyes are terrible. But I should have some outtakes on in a minute. But before I do that, I again would love to thank Mandalorian Slut at tumblr.com for tagging me in this. Again, I read this aloud of my own volition. I hope someone got some enjoyment out of this. I might read the other ones, but those will get age restricted very quickly. I apologize, this is long, but I am a slow reader, as you can probably tell. And this took a lot to record because, as you can probably hear in my background right now, I have a puppy, and he decided that Rex shouldn't be allowed to get a girlfriend and that he needed to voice his displeasure. Yeah, I understand. Don't worry. But again, thank you for listening, and I hope you all have a very nice day full of quality content. Have a good day. Then she reached out and gave Shrek's. Shrek's shoulder. I'm sorry. I'm fucking. Oh, I'm cutting that. Why do you have to keep barking?